United States for the Christmas season, which means that I am baking up a storm. And today I am going to be making a traditional French lemon tart. Citron tarts are my favorite thing to get at the patisserie when I am in France, and they're also a really great dessert for Christmas time. The lemony flavor is so good and goes with so many meals, and tarts are so easy to freeze if you have leftovers. So today I am baking a citron tart. So the first step is to make the crust. Some tart recipes have no bake crusts, so you don't have to worry about pre-baking a crust. I use a recipe that requires a pre-made crust. Each time I bake this, I use a different crust recipe. I haven't found one that I love, and the lemon tart recipe I use does not come with one. Making a crust is pretty straightforward. You need tart pans for this recipe. I have just put my crust in the oven, covered in aluminum foil to keep it from getting brown. I am pre-cooking the crust, and then I will be cooking the crust again with the lemon custard in it. So it's important to cover the crust so that it doesn't get brown. I will link the recipe below that I used. I always end up adding more liquid than the recipes say. I don't know why that is, but whenever I'm mixing up my crusts, it just never has enough liquid. Maybe I'm doing something wrong, but whatever. So the crust is in the oven, and now I am going to start on the lemon custard. The lemon custard filling. I will put the link in the description. Alright, so I am in the middle of baking a lot and have a lot of random mishmash of egg whites and yolks sitting around that need using. So I am making the most of that, making sure nothing gets wasted. So first I add the eggs. Then the sugar. And that was my timer for the crust. This was my wonky extra little crust, so hopefully the others turned out better. Alright, here's what my crust looked like. I smushed it down with a bowl because I didn't have pie baking beads. So definitely not perfect, but it'll taste good. And I'm always experimenting with different crust recipes because I haven't found one that I loved. So maybe I'm just bad at making crust, but also maybe it was the recipe. For me, baking at Christmas is so fun because there are people around to eat what I bake. Nothing is worse than baking wonderful desserts and then not having anyone to eat them except for myself, which is not what I want to do. I also love baking things that I've eaten in other countries. And the citron tart, I've had it in America obviously as well, but having it in France, oh, it was good. And I am really happy to get to share the things I've had in my travels with my friends and family back in America. I got the seeds from the lemons. No. Shoot. I'm squeezing lemons into this mix for custard, and I got seeds. It's not what we want. So many. Does not make a good custard. So this is essentially a lemon custard that's going to go in this tart. Custard is a really fun dessert to make. It's actually easier than it looks. This concoction does not look very appetizing at the moment. It'll take 10 to 20 minutes of stirring over simmering water to cook it up. When I bake, it either goes phenomenally or catastrophically wrong. And it's always one or the other, and normally it's great and sometimes it's catastrophically wrong. Hopefully this is one of those good times. I try to make everything I bake look very pretty, but in the end, what's important is that it tastes good. So that's what we're hoping for today. Hopefully it looks good and it tastes good. There's less pressure because this is not being given away. It is being eaten by my family. A lemon tart is a really great Christmas dessert. I feel like it's one of those underrated desserts that people don't normally think of. It does not have that many ingredients. Like once you get the crust done, which you can do a million different ways of easiness to like expert baker. Once you have the crust done, like it's not that many ingredients and it doesn't take that long to make. And you can serve it hot or cold. Honestly, the lemon tart is just an amazing Christmas dessert. An amazing dessert in general. A lemon tart is also one of those desserts that sounds really fancy, but doesn't take tons and tons and tons of work like some fancy desserts do. So it's a good one to know how to make. And there's like an endless number of possibilities of what kinds of tarts you can make. So even if lemon is not your thing, there are still a lot of easy tart options that you can make as your Christmas dessert. I am making a huge mess in this kitchen that you can see behind me, and I'm not even sorry about it. When I travel, I never have a good kitchen. I had a kitchen in Thailand and it had a gas burner that I had to light with a lighter and turn the propane on when I wanted to use it. And that worked fine for like stovetop stuff, but the concept of like an oven to bake in just did not exist over there. That was not going to happen. And then I went to Bali and I didn't have any kitchen at all in Bali. I ate out the entire time. And then in Japan, I was in a hotel, so of course I did not have a kitchen, especially not with an oven. And so I have just missed having an oven. That's one thing that I always miss when I travel. And so when I'm in somewhere, when I'm back somewhere where I have access to an oven, I always try and get in all of the baking that I can. Hence my current baking extravaganza that's going on. I love baking. I love having a place to bake, even if I'm a visitor baking in someone else's place. Baking is something that is really stress relieving to me. I like activities where I can see the progress being made, and baking is something where not only can I see the progress being made, I accomplish my goal and I get to eat it. And so I really enjoy baking, and also the rewards of baking. Okay, so I read my recipe wrong. After this custard is done, which it's still not, I am to let it cool, and then because the shell is already cooked and the custard is already cooked, I don't need to put it back in the oven. It'll be done. I just have to refrigerate it. I think I pour the custard in and then refrigerate it for like 4 hours, and then it's hardened, and that's that. Last time I made a lemon tart, it must have been a different recipe because I am pretty sure I remember cooking it after mixing everything together, so I'll have to go with it. My problem is I have like 20 saved on Pinterest and they all sort of look the same, and I thought I was making the same one that I had made before because I did really like that one, and I'm not apparently. And so it's nice for me because it's easier. Literally all you have to do is make the crust, make the custard, put it together, and then refrigerate. It's not a hard dessert to make. I think the last recipe I used must have made me bake it after. But yeah, this time I don't have to, so happy surprise. My custard is starting to thicken up. It's almost the consistency of pudding right now. Not quite yet. It's still got a ways to go. My recipe says this takes 10 to 20 minutes, and I think it's been about 10 minutes, so I still got some time. Okay, I'm stirring the butter in, and it's looking good. It looks like custard, and I think that is the consistency that I'm wanting. Then when the custard is cool, I will pour it into my tart crust. The crust did not turn out the best, partially because I didn't have pie beads to keep it from rising, but also the edge is really strong. I think part of it was just this recipe that I hadn't used before that is interesting. All right, it's a little haphazard, but here is my lemon tart. It still needs to go in the fridge for 4 hours, but I am pretty happy with that. The crust is not perfect, but I knew that the crust wasn't perfect. So I'm gonna give it one last smooth over and then set it in the fridge. Put it in the fridge to let it set, and hopefully it will come out beautifully. It is a very dark yellow. I think that's okay though. I think it's probably because I didn't put very much cream in it, and I think the tarts that are lighter have more milk in them, more cream. So, as you can see, citron tarts, lemon tarts, not that difficult to make. Tasty, beautiful, showstopper, and it can feed a lot of people. Like, giving people a slice of this, you can feed a lot of people with one tart. Partially because my crust was kind of small. My crust shrunk. I got 2 additional tarts out of what I did. So I have a big tart plus 2 little baby tarts, all out of one recipe. So I could have like filled this tart up more to make it brimming to the top, which I have done before, but in this case, I would rather have the smaller tarts and the big tart. This is such an underrated option for Christmas dessert, Christmas baking, and it's not that difficult, which makes it a win. Highly recommend the lemon tart, even though this one was a little bit haphazardly made. I was on the phone for part of it. I'm also in the middle of making cookies and other things and have a lot of projects going on at the moment, but I could still make a tart. Highly recommend this as a Christmas dessert option. Happy baking! Thanks for hanging out.